Do you think that people should be able to migrate in order to, support their families themselves or escape like violence or war or anything like that?
Yes, I do think they should be able to migrate.
Yeah, that sounds good.
If you got to provide for your family, you don't feel it's safe for your family in that area, by all means, go somewhere else.
Everyone deserves to be stable and have a safe habitat around them.
If you want to, you should be able to.
Yeah.
I think so.
No.
I feel like nobody can really tell you, where you can go on God's green earth, but if you're going to go somewhere, at least help that place out and become, more patriotic about that place.
Only with American citizenship, I think it's wrong that they work and they take everyone's jobs, but they don't have to pay taxes like everybody else.
I mean, if you're gotta escape war, you gotta escape war. And America, it's a melting pot, so.
America's a free country, right? So, I mean, it's a land of opportunity.
I think they should come here legally.
You have to do what's best for your family, and if you have to move to do what's right, then you gotta do it.
Yeah, half of my family's from the Philippines. We just came over a year ago.
In the Philippines, they're poor, so if I go here, I can be I can raise myself like that.
How do you feel about people immigrating to the United States? Do you welcome them?
If they come legally.
I think it's great that people who don't have what we have get an opportunity to experience the freedoms that we have.
You bring diversity and we get to learn new things.
It really doesn't bother me.
I don't mind, but I think it's better if you do it legally.
I think that they just are coming to the United States for opportunity, and I don't think that they should be treated differently.
My cousin and her husband are from Panama, and they just came up here.
Yeah, a lot of my family's from Puerto Rico, so they just came up here.
America is far and away the most diverse country on earth in terms of different ethnicities, cultures, religion, and languages.
With the exception of Native Americans, we are all descendants of immigrants.
Many of our ancestors came through Ellis Island during the immigration waves of the 19th and early 20th centuries.
We were considered the melting pot of the world, initiating a long tradition of welcoming newcomers.
In the 21st century, however, this tradition has been marred by the failure to reform immigration policy,
which has led to families being separated for years on end.
Chaos on our borders, including human trafficking, drug smuggling, and forced prostitution.
And a second-class citizenry of millions of undocumented immigrants with no protections and no clear path towards legal citizenship.
As the body of Christ, this is an issue that affects us all. We are called to love and serve the strangers among us,
no matter what side of the border they come from.
Faith Without Borders, welcoming the stranger. That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Elias.
And this is Realfaith TV.
Most of the teens on the street felt that people should be able to migrate to other countries in order to have a better life for them and their families.
We'll talk with them a little later in the show, as well as meet our spotlight guest Josie, whose mom brought her across the border to America when she was just 3. Just recently, she was able to obtain her legal status.
But first, let's meet our studio guests and see what they have to say on this topic.
Okay, they are Christina, John, Ijama, Mike, Bill, and Joelle.
All right, so do you guys think that every person has the right to migrate as a means to better their lives?
I have no problem with immigration. Most of my family, my dad's side, they're all immigrants. They came from Cuba, and they went from nothing to everything. He worked his way up, and if you want to come to get a better life, there should be no problem with that.
I agree. My family also immigrated. I'm a second-generation immigrant, and I have nothing against immigrants. I think if they need to better their lives, they should have the opportunity.
We're so blessed here in America to have all these opportunities, and we shouldn't be shutting people out if they want the same opportunities that we have.
I'm in the same boat. Najama is second generation is your parents, right? So my dad came over from Lebanon when he was 19, so.
I think that whoever comes over here should have equal opportunity. We should, like John said, to be able to provide that for them because we're so blessed in this country.
Yeah, I feel like immigrants are part of what makes America who it is. A lot of immigrants, legal and illegal, who work in restaurants, and they work longer hours than anyone else. They're there almost every day, and they're working really hard to support themselves and their families back home, and they should be allowed to do that.
And I think we need to learn and know how their life was and try to make it better.
People have been migrating and immigrating for thousands of years.
Exactly. Well, throughout history, the mass migrations of people were often caused by war, famine, or natural disaster.
Often migrants were viewed as a threat because native populations thought they would deplete their resources.
Even in first world countries like the United States, citizens may fear that immigrants will take away jobs and impoverish communities.
This thinking only leads to discrimination and division.
So what about where you live? Are immigrants welcomed or are they discriminated against?
That's what we asked the teens on the street.
Let's check it out.
I have a lot of immigrant friends, so where I'm from, we welcome them.
Most people I know welcome them.
I think they're pretty discriminated against.
I think they discriminate against the races that and where they come from.
Depends on the race, on the ethnicity.
I guess they're welcoming, but like there's jokes and stuff going around.
Well, the people that I know really don't discriminate against them.
A lot of people, accept them as people, and most don't.
Most of them don't even get it, honestly, to tell you the truth. They just go about their business.
Discriminated against as a joke, but not really as in like most people really accept everyone.
We're living in like a more of a tolerant age. There's so many like different crazy stuff going on that we're just accepting everything.
And there's all cultures and colors, and I think that's awesome.
Most people know they welcome them. They're nice to them.
A lot of immigrants are my friends. My best friend, my brother, born in another country, came here. And, I love them.
Some are actually really open to it, don't mind, just go along with everything. Others, I guess, just don't like change.
Oh, they're not very happy towards immigrants. There's a lot of jokes about them.
Yeah.
A lot.
Like, do you want me to say some? It's like, it's messed up for me.
There are a lot of misconceptions about, undocumented immigrants. Like, one of the teens on the street was saying something about how they don't pay taxes. But even if you really think about it, yeah, they pay, most of the same taxes we do. Like if they go out to buy something for their kids, they're paying the sales tax. If they, they go out to eat, they're paying taxes on the prepared food. And also, if, not that I condone stealing a, social security number, but if they do take a social security number that's not their own, they're paying for the social security, but there's no way they can tap into the pool that they've created. So there's no way they can access. So in essence, they're giving us money and they're not getting anything in return. So what do you guys think? How do you think immigrants are viewed in America? Negatively, positively? What do you think?
I think they're viewed definitely negatively, like outsiders. Personally, I came here when I was 2. My mom, she was about 22, and the story she tells me how she was treated in school, it was just horrible. Like even in school, even if you watch people around you and you hear what they say about immigrants, undocumented or even legal immigrants, it's just horrible. And this book that we read in class, Enrique's Journey, it just tells about a story of a little boy who actually immigrated to America and tells the truth about what really goes on. And it's just horrible because many people don't make it across the border. And even after leaving their country and coming to America, they have to deal with the hardships that us as Americans put onto them.
And I think another thing that I've noticed, at least where I live, is there's a lot of animosity, but I think it's also because they don't know about immigration or they don't know what these people have gone through. And I feel like if that were to change and people were to be informed, our perception would be a lot different than it is right now.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of immigrants, people think that they don't know anything. They come over here just to take jobs and that they should learn how to speak English, that they're a burden on society, when really they have a story to tell and they come over here just to make a better opportunity for their family, just like anyone else would want, a better life for their family, a better life for their kids.
Yeah. I feel like it kind of depends on where you are. I'm from an area where there's a lot of 2nd and 3rd generation immigrants. Like people have parents or grandparents who don't speak English. And I feel like in my school, they're accepted, they're friends with each other and friends with people of other races. But at the same time, there's like stereotypes. And I think that immigrants who come in have to deal with that a lot, especially the 1st generation. But once people get to know them, I think, if people will get to know them, I think that would help reduce the stereotype a lot.
And I think there's also like a lot of misconceptions with jobs. Like a lot of the immigrants don't take jobs that most Americans would want. They work in the kitchens and in restaurants. They're busboys and they're doing like the hard work. They landscape, things like that. And also people think that they don't want to learn English when they come here, but really they do. It's a fact that 91% of 2nd generation immigrants are fluent in English and 97% of 3rd generation are also fluent in English. So when they come here, they want to adopt our ways and also introduce their culture into our society as well. Next, let's meet our spotlight guest, Josie.
She'll share with us some of the hardships her mother faced in coming from her native country.
and why she decided to move to New Jersey to provide her daughter with a better life.
Well, my story begins April 23rd, 1987 in Tijuana, Mexico, which is where I was born. Tijuana borders the US. Life in Mexico was a little hard, especially for my mom since she was a single mom at the moment and she was trying to work 2 jobs to try to make ends meet. She was working at a place where she really didn't want to work. They wouldn't pay her sometimes. She said that once she lived off tortillas, which is what we regularly eat, and eggs. That's what made her open her eyes and say, I can't do this to my child. She tells me that she could never spend time with me. I was always at a sitter's house, at my Nana's house. It was really difficult for her emotionally because her mother had just passed away and she was supporting me and her younger brother. So when she decided to come over here, my aunt had come over in 1990, I believe. Around that time, they were giving an amnesty. So she came over and she liked it here in New Jersey, especially we came to the Princeton area and the Princeton area wasn't populated yet with Hispanics. And she found employment easily and she actually had a place to call her own. So that's what made my mom come over here. Basically, they convinced her. They told her, life is different here. We're over here, you don't have anybody over there, so just come over. According to her, she says that our way here, we just walked maybe 7 miles one night, and then the coyote, which is the person, your guide, who brings you over to the side, he told us get in a car. We drove for a while to the airport in California, and then I took a plane here to New Jersey, and I've been here all my life since I was 3.
So according to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops' Justice for Immigrants website,
an undocumented immigrant is a person who is present in the United States without the permission of the United States government.
Undocumented immigrants enter the U.S. without being inspected by an immigration officer,
or by using false documents, or legally with a temporary visa, and then remain in the U.S. beyond the expiration date of the visa.
It is estimated that between 10 and 11 million undocumented immigrants currently reside in the United States,
a third being under the age of 18.
And nearly 500,000 new undocumented immigrants enter the country each year.
Like Josie's mother, many come to work in order to sustain their lives and the lives of their families too.
Let's go back to Josie as she talks to us about her experience as an illegal immigrant.
Even though she was by all counts Americanized growing up here.
Being an illegal immigrant is a hard situation, especially for people who grew up here. Like myself, English was my first language. I read in English, I wrote in English. I learned the American culture, I learned my Pledge of Allegiance. I know more about the United States than I know about Mexico. One of my most difficult experiences, especially as a teenager, is when you're in high school and spring break comes along. One of my really good friends invited me to go to Los Cabos, Mexico. Little did she know that I couldn't leave the country. You can't really share with your friends what you're going through. And when everybody's so excited about applying to college, you get a rejection letter saying, hey, you can't go to school because you don't have a social security number. My mom, she got married to a wonderful man who's my dad, and he tried to give us legal status here in the country. We applied for a legal status. It was really hard, and it was a big, long waiting period. I think we applied when I was maybe 10 years old. And by the time I was going to turn 18, our lawyers told us she's not going to make it. She's not going to be able to receive legal status when your wife receives legal status. At that time, I was dating someone and he wasn't legal at the moment. His boss told him, I can fix your legal status through your employer. So he decided that that's what he wanted to do. He went and he spoke to lawyers about that. And the lawyer said, do you have a girlfriend that you're planning on getting married with? Marriage to us wasn't a big thing. At that moment, I was 18. And he said, well, I plan on marrying her in the future. And so the lawyer told us, hey, why don't you get married with her? And then you're gonna be able to fix status for her and yourself at the same moment. So then if you get married in the future, she doesn't have to wait. So I got married. I was living at my mom's house and he was living at his house. So we didn't tell anybody that we got married because it was a little embarrassing to tell my friends, hey, I'm married because I'm not legal in this country, you know? So I didn't tell anyone. I kept on living my life. And then fortunately, my legal situation was fixed and I'm here legally now. So I'm somebody in the system.
So after hearing her story, what are your concerns and about the current laws about immigration?
Like you said before, the whole process is really tedious and long. Like I said before, I immigrated here when I was 2 from Nigeria, Africa. And I asked my mom not too long ago, like, actual process of her becoming, like just coming here to get her visa, not her citizenship. And it's so long and tedious that no one really understands like what goes on behind it. It takes a long time to actually get your citizenship.
And I couldn't believe when she said that, oh, all my friends are going off to college and I'm getting rejection letters that, oh, you don't have one number and that's gonna stop it. And it's really sad that, you know, she worked so hard in school and you're turned down, oh, I don't have a social security number. And I think that needs to change.
Talk about jumping through hoops. I mean, she had to get married at 18 to become a citizen. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. You'd think they'd try to make it a little bit easier so that, you know, everyone can achieve the American dream.
Even something as simple as she said as going on spring break, she couldn't even leave the country to go and have fun with her friends.
And it's probably really tough to keep that from your friends, like, because you don't know what they'll think when you tell them or if they'll treat you differently. And maybe they'd be supportive or maybe they wouldn't, and it's too big a risk.
Catholic teaching states that every person is entitled to basic human rights.
That's food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, and education. No one should be denied.
Undocumented immigrants are often subject to abuse and exploitation by employers.
Because they have no representation or organized unions to stand with, many of their voices are silenced by fears of migrant raids and deportation.
Such brutal enforcement practices go against our nation's founding pledge to individual liberty and due process.
Well, next, Josie talks about why she concealed her immigration status to those closest to her.
And how a raid in the Princeton area instilled fear into her family and the community.
I wasn't ashamed of my status. It was just hard because I was scared that my friends weren't going to understand what I was going through. And then with all these laws and all these like raids coming, you also fear that one day you and your family will be separated. One day we heard that there was a raid in the Princeton area where my mom was working. You really learn how to appreciate your family. You really learn how to actually say, Mom, I love you every day before leaving, because you don't know if your families are going to be together. It's also a very lengthy process to fix your status in the country and a very expensive process too. One of the things that was really hard was having to get married so young and so early in my life. And it was either you get married or you just stay in this pending mode where you don't know what's going to happen. God forbid one of those days you're caught in a raid and you have to be sent to Mexico. My mom wasn't very happy when I told her. She was trying to find any other way possible for me to be able to fit in the legal status with them, and unfortunately there wasn't a way. Then we got married by church because it wasn't just, I didn't look at it as a marriage for a legal status only. I looked at it as a marriage to be with my special someone. And thank God he's a person that believes in God, and that was very important for me too. To those teenagers who are illegal and are in the shadows, I understand exactly how you feel, and it's very hard. It's a very hard situation, but the best advice that I can give you is just have faith in God, because in the end, God is the only one that's gonna, touch the Congress's heart. Keep strong in your faith, because in the end, that's all we have, God.
I really did like what she said about God, having God to lean on. For 40 years, the chosen people of God wandered the desert with no homeland to call their own.
Upon fulfilling his promise of delivering them to the promised land, God instructed the Israelites to always care for the outsider in their midst.
In Leviticus chapter 19, it's written,
"You shall treat the alien who resides with you no differently than the natives born among you.
Have the same love for him as for yourself.
For you too were once aliens in the land of Egypt."
1,400 years later, the Holy Family would become refugees in Egypt,
fleeing the tyranny of Herod, who would send his soldiers to massacre all infants under his rule,
to ensure the death of the Christ child.
Because of the Holy Family's flight into a foreign land, Herod's plan could not come to pass.
In the book of Matthew, chapter 25, Jesus reminds us of God's command to the Israelites.
"For I was hungry, and you gave me food.
I was thirsty, and you gave me drink.
A stranger, and you welcomed me."
Followers of Jesus are called to be one with those who are suffering, vulnerable, and in need.
Can you relate to this idea?
Do you believe in reaching out to those who are suffering and vulnerable, including those who don't speak our language and are new to our country?
These are questions we posed to the teens on the street.
Let's hear what they had to say.
If someone needs help, everybody should be open to reach out a hand and help someone, even if they're a complete stranger, and even if it's difficult, if they don't speak your language. But
there's enough of good things to go around. We could share,
Right. What about people who don't speak the language in our country? Would you reach out to them too?
we all speak people at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? We can all communicate with people. And what they say, like, a certain amount of communication is nonverbal anyway.
Because I think if they come to our country and cannot speak English, I think it's really important for them to learn how and to accept everyone and welcome everyone.
I was brought up as everybody's equal. Nobody's really better than somebody else.
Everyone like deserves a fair chance and a fair opportunity.
We try to be open to them and, welcome them.
They're here, you know, it's for a reason, so they belong here. Just like everybody came from somewhere.
I treat them, how I want to be treated.
I think everybody should be treated equally, so.
I'm not really a religious person. I accept immigrants,
Well, I'm Catholic, so I believe everyone should be treated the same and how you want to be treated.
Just any other person, I guess, you wouldn't want to be judged, right? So.
Everyone on the Teen on the Street said that everyone should be treated equally, but really when you think about that, that's not how a lot of people act. There's racist jokes, there's jokes about different ethnicities, and I think that if everyone truly followed what they thought and actually acted those things out, that wouldn't be the case in our country.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So let's go back to our spotlight guest, Josie, where she'll discuss how she welcomed some new immigrants to her high school.
And how she started a Spanish club to bridge the divide between English and Spanish-speaking students.
When I was in high school, there were a couple of kids that came over and they didn't really know English. And so they had to go to ESL classes. So we befriended them, and when other kids would hear us speaking in Spanish, they would just say, "Why are you speaking in Spanish? You should speak English," and just rude remarks like that. And it turned really hard for them to make friends with the other communities, with the other children that did speak English. What we did, we started a Spanish club where we got a couple of people that were English-speaking students that were learning how to speak Spanish, and we put them together and they taught each other English and Spanish. That Spanish club actually helped us a lot to get these two kids from two different worlds just to sit together and talk, and then they found out that they had so many things in common. At the end, you had people that just were friends for life. It was beautiful because these kids just, when you put them together and you give the opportunity to the stranger to open up and you give them the opportunity of listening, you can do wonderful things. My faith is a big part of me. It's a big part of who I am, and it's a big part of the way I treat people, especially immigrants, because we're all strangers to each other, but once you get to know each other, then you realize we're not strangers. We're created by one person, God. We do marches and protests, and what a lot of people like to say is, todos somos hijos de Dios. We're all children of God. And when you do that and you sit down together and you realize, hey, you're a regular person like you and I, and like the saying says, we are all children of God. We live by what Jesus taught us. The most important commandment, he said, love your neighbor like you love yourself. And the stranger and the immigrant is that neighbor, and we should love them as we love ourselves.
I really love that club that Josie started, because personally, for me, my transition into the American culture would have been a lot easier if people were willing to accept and, invite me into their culture.
Exactly, yeah. Well, finally, we asked the teens on the street what advice they would give to others in welcoming the strangers in their community.
Let's check it out.
Well, people come here for, a new life and, better chances and better opportunities. So you just have to realize we're lucky that we were born in America, and, other people aren't that lucky.
I think everyone should put themselves in someone else's place. I think a lot of people are scared to invite new people in and accept new cultures because, I don't know, some people think that there's a lot of, say, Spanish people coming here or Asian people, and they're almost going to take over. But I don't believe that. They want a new life. They're looking for the better, and we should be able to welcome them.
I think people should just stop being ignorant and sit down and pay attention on what's happening in the world, because you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know their life story. You don't know if they're having problems.
Learn more about the person instead of just judging them.
Look at your own family, guaranteed somebody came from somewhere, because the only people that were here were Native Americans, right?
They're looking with their eyes closed.
Stop being so judgmental.
Don't go along with the jokes if they're getting hurt or anything. Try to stick up for them and stuff.
You just got to get to know people.
My father is, he's Arabic, and he's the first generation immigrant in our family. But one of the simplest ways that he said he would have felt more welcome in America was if people just talk to him like he was a human being, instead of, talking loudly, can you understand me kind of thing. I mean, it's demeaning almost.
We all are human. We all have a heart that was made in the image and likeness of God. And I think if we remember that we are all the same and we're all brothers and sisters, it'd be a lot easier to welcome our brothers and sisters in.
Yeah, I agree. And it probably would help them if you just sat down and listened to their story. Just hear what they have to say.
Yeah, instead of immediately writing them off as an outsider, maybe try to learn a little bit about them and their culture, and then in the process you can teach them about yours and you'll become closer friends. And
yeah, and you should never judge a book by its cover, and if we, the people, pray about the situation, then it should all turn out fine.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Elias that we're all just talk to immigrants like they're human beings, because we all are made by one creator. We're not strangers to one another.
Exactly. And even though our immigration policy really does need to be changed and altered, we can't forget that America is a wonderful country, and I feel so blessed that I live here and am able to have all of the freedoms that America can offer.
Right, and it's the land of opportunity. It's the melting pot,
It really is. Well, in his June 2nd, 2005 editorial in the Catholic Standard, Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, Archbishop of Washington, D.C., wrote,
"We need a strong and clear immigration policy.
It must serve our country's security and prosperity, and at the same time be based on the moral values on which all of our lives must ultimately rest.
We must never forget the gospel call of Jesus to welcome the stranger.
For in the face of the stranger, we see the face of Christ."
For more information on how you can welcome the stranger in your community,
we encourage you to visit the USCCB's Justice for Immigrants website at justiceforimmigrants.com.
we'll also post a link on our website, www.realfaithtv.com.
And we'll leave you today with this final thought.
Hospitality is a Christian charism.
It is an outward-facing reflection of the Spirit of God within us.
As Paul explained in his letter to the Hebrews,
do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers.
For by this, some have entertained angels without knowing it.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Realfaith TV. God bless.